Hello, you're listening to the Robot Wars History podcast where we chat the development of the show and the British robot combat scene in general, looking at key teams and bots. I'm your host Luke, and with me today is TG.
Hello, and all of you staying inside and social distancing responsibly.
And making his triumphant return to the History podcast, Theo.
After 2 years, I'm back, baby.
And today we'll be discussing the creations of Roger Plan, including the Mule, the Big Cheese, and Wheelie Big Cheese.
Theo's favourite cheese is Wensleydale.
Not too strong, not too mild.
Indeed.
Good stuff.
So we'll be kicking things off with Roger Plan's Series 2 entry, the Mule.
Which is actually a really underrated dairy product, the Mule. It's a bit odd, isn't it, that he sort of started with the Mule and then went on to go full into the cheese theme. Feels a bit odd, doesn't it?
I think the step up from the Mule to the Big Cheese was a bit of a departure, I'd say.
How so?
Yeah, the Mule is it's a unique bot. Its main weapons were a forklift with the piddliest little spikes on the bottom for leverage, and three gas-powered kickers, basically.
Yeah, I loved the kickers. The kickers are kind of up there with Dark Destroyer 2's Wagglers in terms of weapons that are really fun, but have absolutely no offensive logic to them. The kickers are great because that's what mules do. They kick you. And so it fit really well with the theme he was going for. But those things, I'm looking through Series 2 robots. How many robots in Series 2 would successfully be attacked by the mule's kickers? Or even its piddly little forklift, which has got about 3 centimetres of depth to it. That thing's going to probably lift over Demolisher from Series 1, but not much else.
I know. I'd back its kickers to score a KO on Dreadnought, at least.
Yeah. I love the kickers because they were useless, but it wouldn't be the Mule without them.
Yeah.
Every time you saw them fire, it was lovely to see. I think the Mule in general, I loved how it was just Roger Plant, his first robot, messing around with a load of CO2, and what would it become?
Oh yeah, because it also boasts air suspension. The first time you see the Gauntlet, you see it immediately start lowering down. You're like, whoa, what? Who mentioned this?
Something I actually miss from the later seasons. All the robots with adjustable air suspension, because that was so fun to watch. Cassius, the Mule, and I'd say Elvis, but only its body had suspension. It still got beached somehow.
Yeah, it's the Mule is the equivalent of watching peak late 90s television when they've all got beepers and pages and they're acting like it's in VCRs and it's super futuristic technology.
Yeah.
But it does manage to do quite well in the Gauntlet. It comes first, I believe, and completes the Gauntlet. Dodging the Sentinel, dodging Matilda. Doesn't worry there. Roger Plant has a shots fired moment with the House robots threatening to overturn Matilda with the forklift.
Kicking off a rivalry.
Yeah. Starting the House robot versus Roger Plant thing pretty early.
Yeah, and then in its King of the Hill, it does a nice little thing with the forklift where it kind of it kind of grabs Dead Metal's saw in midair. It's like a dramatic anime or something where the good guy catches a sword with his hands.
Yeah, and I love that about the Mule. The Mule's design with its kickers, it really suits King of the Hill. It's one of those robots that I think, they picked the Mule for this episode based on the trial they had, or they picked the trial based on the Mule being in this episode, because the idea of being surrounded on multiple sides by house robots and being able to kick in 3 different angles is just very fitting, even though it was never going to kick them off the stage.
Yeah, I mean, with the being able to kick everywhere, it's like a really crap version of, I don't know, Jackie Chan kicking out five guys all coming at him in different directions.
Brilliant. And even if the kickers wouldn't do much damage, I think even the very gesture of just firing them at the opponents, it's got to work in their favour for points.
I mean, it's hilarious, so that's immediate style points.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Its arena debut, on the other hand, is a pretty how do we put this sensitively, awful fight.
Whoa!
Considering it's predecessor
this is an underrated all-star battle right here. We've got Roger Plant versus Nick Adams.
I know.
Come on.
And Nick Adams has the grace of dying off screen.
Yeah, it's pretty weird because Demon shoves the mule into the PP's head, but is apparently immobilized. I'm not seeing the mule moving either.
I haven't watched this fight in a while, but I just recall a whole heap of stuff happening with the mule and the house robots, and then Jonathan Pierce goes, "Oh, and Demon has been immobilized," and I said, "Wait, what? When did that happen?"
Well, to be fair, the edit for this fight is like 30 seconds long. So
Yeah.
It jumps back to when in the Series 1 trials when they'd have a stock robot.
Yeah.
I think it was Tracy and Eubank the Mouse.
Yeah, and
There's classic comments of, "And Eubank the Mouse has broken down irreparably."
Yeah.
That happened.
No further questions.
I think in the post-fight interview, Nick Adams seems to think he was immobilized. So I think this wasn't just pure producer shenanigans, but you could be forgiven for thinking it.
Oh, I think the mule. I have no doubt Demon broke down. It was just hilarious that it was not even depicted. And the fact that you're right, the edit for this is like 45 seconds. So if it was a 5-minute battle, you would just hate to think what was left on the cutting room floor, because there must have been not a whole lot. And somehow the mule doesn't even get its forklift under Demon, whose ground clearance is like you could fit a semi-trailer underneath that bridge.
Maybe, perhaps. The fight was roughly about that long, and they just have some very bad camera crew.
Yeah. Did it go to the judges, or did it actually?
I think they just declared Demon.
I think they did. Yeah, that's really strange. The wiki says that it was a judge's decision, but I don't know about that. We'll have to fact check that later on.
Their next fight is a lot more of the same. It's
the next fight's atrocious.
Instead of Demon shoving the mule about, it's Plunderbird this time, and unfortunately for the mule, Plunderbird's just a bit better built than Demon.
I remember the last time I watched this fight, it was when BBC Robot Wars UK uploaded Series 2, and I had never seen this episode, and I was excited. I said, get to see the predecessor to the Big Cheese, the predecessor to Thing 2. This is Plunderbird's first heat victory. Oh, it was excruciating. It literally, the entire heat final, like the Demon fights are shocking at it. This is literally Plunderbird drives under the mule, pushes it from one side of the arena to the other, and then that's the end. That's cease, and that's the judge's decision.
I mean, yeah, the other Plunderbird battle is also just another one box pushes a less low box.
Series 2 Heat K is a really atrocious episode. It's actually the first episode to have 3 judges' decisions out of 3.
Oh,
never what you want.
No.
For Series 1 and 2, I'd say don't keep your expectations low. Just take everything for what it is.
Yeah, of course. Series 2 does, it's kind of like, well, it's like Series 9, which everyone called Series 2 back in the day. Fortunately, people don't do that as much these days. But that also had 2, like, it just got worse as each episode went by, because Season 2 went from Heat K, which was the Mule and Plunderbird, to Heat L, which was Havoc and Hardvark, which was even worse. just like Series 9 just kept getting worse with each heat. Something about it.
So, unfortunately, the Mule. Well, I guess fortunately, because if they had gone through it, means we wouldn't have gotten that incredible Plunderbird song. But
Yeah.
the Mule went no further in the arena, but it did win Best Engineered, and honestly, for managing to fit in like 5 different gas tanks and their suspension and the electrical powered forklift, yeah, I think that's fair.
I believe there's a picture on the wiki of this, and it's spectacular how they managed to get everything in so tight.
I know, within like an 80-kilo weight limit too.
Yeah, it looks like the bulk of it seems like almost all of the electronics are just in the like front small box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just gotta do you want to just to move off the engineering thing for a second? You just got to ask yourself if the Mule had won, and I think it was never in a chance of winning against Plunderbird based on the atrocious battle that we saw. Plunderbird was always going to win. It was a bit of a, I guess, Firestorm versus Bolt from the Blue. I don't know. Maybe that's not a good comparison to make. But if it had won, I feel pretty comfortable that it would have done all right in the gauntlet. I don't see it doing particularly well at pinball. What do you guys think?
I mean, to go advance through the pinball, it'd have to beat GBH's 145, which it's not doing that.
GBH was very unlucky to get eliminated on 145.
I don't see it be mobile enough for the pinball, unfortunately. No.
I mean, it wouldn't have to do much to beat Plunderbird's gauntlet run, so...
No, that's the thing. But remember, it has to be Hardvark, and Hardvark only got 200.4 metres. So that means we lose Hardvark instead. And that means...
No, not Cassius versus Hardvark.
No, and that means GBH, if it beats GBH, Hardvark is second last in that as well. So I still got to beat GBH, yeah. And so then GBH versus Cassius instead. Oh, that'd be a much better fight. Cassius can still win comfortably, but would have been more fun than Hardvark.
Mind you, in the pinball, I would have loved to seen it drive straight into the middle and then fired its forklift and kickers to knock as many just in the middle to knock them over, like you see.
The kickers against the barrels. Imagine how fun that would be. Like kicking holes in brick walls and knocking barrels over. It'd be so much fun.
Oh, cheated, damn it!
Big fight you see in an anime where people are piling on top of them to defeat them, and in some explosion they come up with a fist in the air and all the opponents fly off them.
Oh, the Mule, triumphant in pinball. But yes, I somehow don't think they would beat GBH.
I doubt it.
Yeah, but hey, that's a really interesting thing that I didn't really pick up on. So the Mule winning Best Engineered, I've always thought that it was such a shame that Big Cheese had to go up against Chaos 2 in Best Engineered in Series 3, but Big Cheese was actually the reigning Best Engineered champion in Series 3. So they weren't actually unlucky. Roger Plant already had a Best Engineered trophy on his shelf, which is really interesting. I haven't really thought about that before.
Well, I think we can kind of seg on from there on to discussing the Big Cheese.
Yeah.
Quite a spectacular robot, really.
Well loved. We love me some Big Cheese.
Yeah, its primary weapon was just this big, stonking lifting arm.
Yeah. It's like so kilowatt levels of like impressive in that lifting arm.
I mean, yeah, because in its opening battle against Shrapnel, it just dangles an 80-kilogram robot off of it, like, no problem.
Yeah, and it can still drive. Like, it is not even overbalanced. It can just move comfortably with this thing hanging in the air. Like, no other robot was ever able to do that. Just pick something up off the ground. Like, Mantis did it in Series 7. And that's it, pretty much. It's very hard to be able to do that.
It's a lovely example of simple robot done well, done reliably. And that in Series 3 was a great combination.
Yeah.
I mean, it when it's fighting Shrapnel, it just the vision of it holding it aloft. It's like It is literally like Sir Kilowog-esque, except it's an 80-kilogram robot, not an 800-kilogram robot.
Yeah. Really good. Obviously, the elephant in the room is it is extremely slow moving, the lifting arm. It is not something that you would want to use past Series 3.
And the robot itself isn't too fast.
Yeah.
Well, the robot's also massive.
Yeah.
It's so huge.
Yeah. Big thing. But its fight with Anarachophobia is staggeringly impressive, considering that Anarachophobia is possibly the fastest robot in Series 3. Like, I don't think it's the fastest on paper, but it certainly looks like I can't remember many robots, maybe Onslaught, being that fast within the arena. But Anarachophobia is just flying around the arena, hammering away and darting around. Big Cheese can barely even face it at any one time. But then, just a staggeringly impressive bit of luck and skill from Roger Plant is the way that he sort of just the arm lowers down and the axe fires just as it clamps, and then it spins it into the pit. Like, being able to do the clamp alone is a 1 in 100 shot, and then to spin it into the pit as well is just, I cannot believe it. So
it's absolutely beautiful. I mean, yeah, just the way it catches that little nagging toothpick axe just in mid, and then just the pure clean sweep around. It's beautiful.
I couldn't see anyone else doing that.
Like that should be attributed to the Big Cheese being overall a great robot at what it does, but also Roger Plant's driving. I think he's I think it's not spoken about enough, but he was a fantastic driver.
Well, he had to deal with his robots were so awkward.
Yeah.
Especially the really big cheese with its just two steel tipped wheels on the end of on the base of this stupidly long thing. Yeah, to be able to do anything with the robots he had to be pretty good.
And I think Theo, you've got a really good point there, because I think Roger Plant is never mentioned in good driver conversations because of Wheelie Big Cheese, but I would struggle to think of many All-Stars that were more difficult to control than Wheelie Big Cheese. Like, that thing is a meter-long flipper between two wheels. Like, it is so easy to drive that thing badly. It would be incredible of all the All-Stars to pick up the controls and go, there you go. You try and drive this robot from one side of the arena to the other. I reckon most people would struggle.
Exactly, and I think it's a shame because he gets a lot of the attention for his engineering skills, but with what he had to work with, he did a good job.
I think so. Yeah, it's certainly fun, and it is such a shame that, of course, Big Cheese obviously did lose in the heat final against the eventual champion Chaos 2, but gosh, this is a good fight.
Yeah, the fight is so good. It won the only officially bestowed fight of the series by the show. Man, it's so good. Like, if someone told me that someone made a list of the top 100 battles in Robot Wars and they omitted this, I'd think they're crazy. I'd think they're out of their minds.
Yeah. I know. And yet they include some other stuff, like, I don't know, Thor versus Magnetar is like a top 100 fight. Or Exterminator versus Killer Carrot 2.
Yeah, the story of this battle really is just it's a testament to the kind of speed and power of Chaos 2, really. Because Big Cheese, bless him, it's this big, quite awkward, slow thing, and it's against this just nippy little powerful flipper.
Yeah.
And which is just able to circle in and just dive in and attack Big Cheese.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, that's probably who is. I wonder if Chaos 2's faster than Anarachophobia. It's certainly better controlled. I think Anarachophobia might just have an edge on speed, but I'd be interested.
Yeah, I think Anorexophobia it's probably got better raw speed, but
It certainly
better
looks
raw
faster
speed to
because
do
it
what?
flies around ridiculously. So it says here that Anorachophobia's top speed is 20 miles an hour. I wonder what Chaos 2's is. But yeah, the camera work I've already discussed before, I'm sure. I'm pretty sure, Luke, you and I just talked about this on the Chaos 2 podcast. Camera work in this fight is gorgeous. Just the shots.
Oh yeah, they
the
get
shots are beautiful.
You really get to appreciate it all. You get to see the close-ups of like the flips and the attempted self-fighting. They give you the like panned out like full shot of the arena, so you can see just how well controlled Chaos 2 is. Just diving, circling around, diving in.
Yeah. Okay, so Chaos 2 also 20 miles an hour. So it and Anorachophobic have the same top speed. But Chaos 2 doesn't have any little axe nibs that you can clamp and push into the pit. And there is no pit in the heat final, which is a bit of a shame.
But although Chaos 2, I would agree, is a superior machine, the Big Cheese did a damn good job lasting that long. And especially not appearing to be completely at the mercy of Chaos 2.
Absolutely.
I mean, they get Chaos 2 over, which...
Yeah. Nobody else does.
More than most spots could do up until Extreme, really.
Mace doesn't do it. Firestorm doesn't do it. Big Cheese does.
And there's a moment in the fight, I'll always remember, it flipped over Chaos 2 and was just about to go in to clamp it down, give it a push. And it self-righted, and briefly after that, it was the end.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, as impressive as that lifting arm is, I mean, it's bringing a 1998 weapon to a 1999 barrel, basically.
I've got to say, yeah, you're right. If Big Cheese, before we go on to that, and obviously the most impressive thing it does is it picks Sergeant Bash clean up off the floor. Unfortunately, Bash is so heavy that it cannot move around on it like it did with Shrapnel, but it literally picks Bash up and drops it and it breaks into pieces. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah, this marks the real start of Japan's long rivalry with the House Robots, and he was not very happy about the damage they inflicted on him here.
No. But you've got to sort of think to yourself, like you said, a 1998 weapon. If Big Cheese was in Series 2, I would honestly probably have them win the trophy.
Probably, yeah. I mean, unless Cassius gets real lucky.
Yeah, Cassius, who's not a great controlled robot, but I would struggle to name more than Cassius to have a chance against Big Cheese. Like Kilotron, forget about it. Panic Attack, I doubt it. Roadblock, no. I would say they could probably breach Roadblock.
Mortis possibly.
Mortis possibly, yeah. Mortis possibly.
I just feel like if anything they get, the thing is, anything they get that lifting arm under, it's done for.
Yeah, it is, because it can lift everything clean off the ground. And most of the Series 2 robots, with the exception of Mortis and maybe Panic Attack or Roadblock, have got really exposed ground clearances or really easy to snare wheel hubs.
Yeah, and the only invertible bot amongst the top contenders is King Buxton, and I ain't betting on them.
No,
until last the whole fight.
Hard to say, yeah, absolutely. But imagine Big Cheese against some of the Series 2 Heat finalists like Ivanhoe, Loco.
God.
These things would be technophobic. They'd just be completely rooted. But what we'll do as a bit of fun is let's do Big Cheese versus Series 3 and get a feel for how it would have done in not Series 3 Heat E. Because I think the general consensus is that Big Cheese would certainly contend, if not win, most of the other heats in Series 3. So let's start with Heat A, Mace 2 and Suicidal Tendencies. Ooh, Suicidal Tendencies.
That's a weird one.
It is a weird one.
Because Mace 2 is kind of... Mace 2 has a limited amount of defense against being turned over, as in you can't really turn it onto its back. So it's possible they could they're pretty quick, so it's possible they could avoid the lift for the most part and score the judges with some lifts. They won't overturn.
It does have that
Big Cheese.
flail, I suppose. The mace on the back of Mace.
Yeah, they'll never overturn the Big Cheese, but maybe they could grind out the judges if they avoid getting tipped over.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think, honestly, if against Mace, they surely wouldn't be able to lift Big Cheese over. And if Roger doesn't get in a lucky lift and flip it over, I reckon Big Cheese will get a judge's decision just for, even though it's really slow, in most of its fights, it still appears to be on the aggression at all points. So I think based off the aggression, it might just take it from Mace.
Yeah, I actually felt pretty comfortable with giving the Big Cheese the win over Mace. I was more worrying about suicidal tendencies, to be honest. Not because of its offensive output, but just what the hell does Big Cheese do to suicidal tendencies?
Honestly, just gets in like a few lifts or so.
Yeah,
More effective than anything suicidal tendency does.
Mace 2 did win just by overturning it a couple of times, so yeah, you're probably right. All right, well,
I wouldn't put it past Roger to get the arm, lift it up slightly, and sort of snag it in the tracks, and do a little.
That would be nice. I don't think it would be able to pull that quite off, but yeah, certainly. I certainly think that it would probably be able to overturn it quite easily. Pitbull and Bearmoth. I reckon Pitbull it would certainly beat because its arm is slow enough that Pitbull's rollover design wouldn't work. But Bearmoth I would probably back to beat Big Cheese.
Yeah, the Bearmoth scoopers are good. I mean, that'd be a good fit actually to flip Big Cheese over.
Yeah. They do overturn.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, they do overturn General Carnage, who is similarly wide. So yeah, I think that'd probably be doable. Agrabot and Blade. I don't think anybody's going to dispute that Big Cheese would win that.
No.
Big Brother and Ultor.
I mean, Razor in the same he would win, but.
Yeah, but I mean, Razor in Series 3 is almost impossible to say because. So with Razor, I always take the view that it doesn't change in Series 3. Like, it loses in the second round, whether it's fighting the Big Cheese, whether it's fighting Agrabot, whether it's fighting Blade, whether it's fighting Binky. So, I just base it on Agrabot versus Blade, and I don't think Big Cheese would struggle against either of them, to be honest.
No.
I think that wins that. And Big Brother versus Ultor, much the same.
Yep.
No extra thoughts there. All right. Heat F. Sorry, Theo, what was that?
I agree.
Very good. Gravedigger and the Dark Destroyer. Well, Dark Destroyer, not much competition. Gravedigger's interesting.
I'm not sure if Gravedigger would be able to breach the ground clearance.
I really don't think it would either. No, I think you're right. And I think Gravedigger's ground clearance itself is high enough that Big Cheese would quite comfortably do it. But yeah.
It's a shame that, because actually, if Gravedigger could get under, I would honestly back that rather than.
I mean, if it can get Big Cheese over, then fight's done.
I always saw Gravedigger as a mini Cassius.
Yeah, I always rated Series 3 Gravedigger quite highly, and I think that their pushing power is really impressive, and they really should have beaten Stegosaurus. So yeah, it's certainly one that I would give, but yeah, I certainly agree. The ground clearance really is the deciding factor for me.
And the power of their arm wasn't something to be.
No,
it was. I wouldn't want it to go against it if I was any of the series.
The chuck they get on Mortis is pretty impressive. The pitting one.
Absolutely.
All right. Steg and Napalm. Well, Napalm, I don't think would win, but Steg, that's another interesting one.
I reckon Steg might be fast. Steg might be fast enough to avoid getting overturned. Well, to avoid getting overturned by the pretty slow lifting arm.
Yeah, and I think that Big Cheese has got big, big sides, and Steg
Yeah.
will just live there like he did against Beast of Bodmin.
I don't know. I'd actually go for Big Cheese here
Interesting.
because Stegosaurus isn't especially fast. I think the Big
It's
Cheese.
very.
I wouldn't say
I-
very
I-
fast, but I wouldn't say slow either.
It's fast enough to handle the Big Cheese, I'd reckon.
Possibly, but I'm just not sure what it could do with it. It could push, but the Big Cheese is very good at turning if it's being pushed on one of the sides, and it doesn't really have anything else offensive apart from that.
I suppose Big Cheese is faster than Beast of Bodmin, but interesting. That's a good discussion. Comment section, let us know. Big Cheese versus Stegosaurus. Hypnodisc and Berserk 2. I kind of want to say that I would back both Hypnodisc and Berserk 2. I feel like Berserk 2 would probably beat the Big Cheese. I don't know.
Ooh.
I reckon I'd back Big Cheese to get a lift in.
Yeah,
Hypnodisc
maybe I would too.
Hypnodisc is weird. I'm not sure how well the Big Cheese's armor would stand up to Hypnodisc,
I'm
and
gonna
I think
guess
Hypnodisc is
poorly.
probably. I don't think
Um,
Hypnodisc would be at risk of being overturned.
No.
In theory, it's titanium armor, but we saw in the fight with Chaos 2 where Killop sort of went in under the wheel arch, and then it just tore out one of the sides at the back. So that leads me to believe that the side armor isn't really that great. Saying that, again, if Big Cheese can keep its front pointed at Hypnodisc, I can't see how Hypnodisc can take that.
Oh, I don't know. I feel like if Hypnodisc hit the arm while it was in motion, I feel like that would be very bad for the Big Cheese's arm. So may not be as visceral as Stealth, but I feel like it would not be good for the Big Cheese. Yeah, no, I think I'll back the Big Cheese over Berserk 2 now that I think about it, but I certainly would not back it against Hypnodisc.
Berserk 2, I don't think would have the lifting reach. Don't know what you call that.
It did get Alligator over, and Alligator's not narrow, but
Yeah.
it did take a bit of effort, and I feel like Big Cheese is better driven than Alligator.
So, I just don't think Berserk would be able to flip over Big Cheese, and with a good enough control, Big Cheese would probably get a lucky lift in.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Heat Eye, Beast of Bodmin, and Invertebrat.
Yeah, I'm pretty comfortable saying Big Cheese takes both.
Yeah.
We backed Big Cheese to beat Series 2 Roadblock, and this is significantly worse Roadblock.
Roadblock's cousin that we don't talk about in mixed company. All right, 101 in King Buxton. I think I would pretty comfortably back 101. King Buxton, it would just depend on whether it was reliable enough to last the distance, but I can't see Big Cheese capitalising against either of these two. They're both much better than Suicidal Tendencies at this point in their lives.
Yeah.
I'd say against Big King Buxton it would lose simply because King B could ram it and get a good judge's decision in. 101, again, I think it comes down to the tracks. In my mind, I'm hopeful it can snag one of the tracks or use that to its advantage at least. So I'd actually say Cheese on that.
Okay. Exterminator and Panic Attack.
Exterminator. I think I might back Exterminator because it does, if I remember correctly, it does self-right at least once, and it's pretty fast machine. I also back Panic Attack because
I back Panic Attack pretty comfortably. Exterminator is an interesting one. Exterminator has a really good scoop at the front, which would negate the arm, and they would have to get to Exterminator on the side. And I just think Marlon Pritchard is a good enough driver that wouldn't happen. So I think that I would probably back Exterminator.
I'd also back Big Cheese actually. Because if you remember, the original Exterminator had no base plate, so
It's
if it
true.
can get the arm, it could lift it up. It could carry it like it did in its first
you're
fight.
right. I definitely agree with you there. It's just going to be about whether they can. So that I think that's a very valid opinion to have.
I'm just imagining them getting their arm and they start lifting it and it just goes all the way up and like impales the battery or something.
I always love to imagine Big Cheese getting an Uta. Just imagine that. It's just like, you get it on a fork, and sometimes when you get something on a fork and you just sort of scrape it off, you just sort of hang it over the wall and reverse, and the wall sort of peels it off the arm. That would have been fun.
Oh, I would love to see that.
Would love to see it. Evil Weevil and Panzer, I feel pretty comfortable in Big Cheese in this episode. Even though Evil Weevil is basically Panic Attack, it's not really as good.
No.
Pussycat and Scudder's Revenge, I'm pretty comfortable with it over Scudder's Revenge, but I think Pussycat probably wins.
I mean, as long as Pussycat doesn't bring the explodey discs, then they'll just win a boring aggression.
It's like Razor, isn't it? Can you rate Pussycat objectively, or does Pussycat always lose in the Heat Final Series 3 no matter who it's against? I just think that probably don't pick that. And yeah, if it's not, then Pussycat wins pretty comfortably.
I think history repeats itself.
Yeah, okay. Good stuff. All right, Thing 2 and Cerberus. Ooh, rematch. Nick Adams versus Roger Plant, round 2.
I think Thing 2's... I don't think they'll get caught.
Yeah, Thing 2 is too...
Big Cheese's arm is so slow. Yeah. They'll just, if it starts lifting them, they will just reverse off.
And Thing 2's ground clearance at the front is almost untouchable. Like, you can't get under that. It's the whole design is pressing that wedge flash to the ground. Cerberus, I think it beats fairly easily, but Thing 2, I would comfortably have Thing 2 win. All right, Deator and Firestorm.
Oh, right.
Deator I don't back, Firestorm I do.
Yeah, same. I don't really think there's
much
a dispute there.
I agree.
Yep, and Dreadnought and Trident. God, Big Cheese fighting Trident would be awful. It would just try and lift it, but Trident is it's got those those trolley wheels which are really hard to get off the ground. It's just would be really awkward fight, but I think Big Cheese would win.
Not going to get any leverage under it.
No,
God,
Trident nothing.
Oh God,
Trident is so slippery. Dreadnought loses easily.
Don't race it against Trident, even if it can't effectively lift it. I just think it will still dominate the fight.
Yeah, Trident's doing.
Oh yeah, it's going to be one of those like lifted up draw. It's kind of like Bolt from the Blue versus Firestorm, actually, which is the second time I've referred to that fight in this episode, and it's twice more than it deserves to be talked about. But that's the closest I can think of as a comparison. Constantly lifting something that remains mostly on the ground.
Absolutely.
So what's our tally? So we've got Big Cheese winning Heat A, C, D, F, I, L, and P. So that's more than half. So that's pretty good. That is a pretty good outcome, I think. Excellent stuff. All right. Well, we have wrapped up quite nicely on the Big Cheese, and that just leaves us with one more robot to talk about.
Yes. So, as we mentioned earlier, Roger Plant was rather incensed with the damage he suffered at the hands of the house robots, and so he resolved to build something that would be so tough that they couldn't do a thing to it. So he made this big titanium bot, and he called it Wheelie Big Cheese. And I mean, we've seen bots that focused, that are heavily weapon focused, like the likes of Apex or hell, even Typhoon 2, where the entire shell is basically the weapon.
Yeah, or 259.
Wheelie
or
Big
like,
Cheese.
anyone's just all weapon.
Wheelie Big Cheese is literally a flipper on wheels. Like, there's nothing more to it. It is a flipper on wheels.
Would you even call it a full body flipper?
Basically, I mean, yeah, it is.
And what a thing it is. Like, the second you looked at Wheelie Big Cheese, you could just tell the show wanted it to be amazing. And it just, I just love the look of it. I mean, I love the name. Like, where do you even come up with that? It's a magnificent name. It's just all about.
I mean,
the 3 words, all of which are integral to the robot's identity and make a very funny pun at the same time, which is simple and very easy to just appreciate for like.
I mean, when you see when you see Roger Plant on the show, you can tell he's the guy. He's the kind of guy who's going to come up with a name like Wheelie Big Cheese.
Yeah, he's very dry. Very droll.
Personally, I think that pun is a bit cheesy.
But wait, it gets better.
Damn it, I had a good one.
Submit your cheese puns in the comment section below.
Let's be mature. Let's carry on.
So yeah, Wheelie Big Cheese. Now, it was originally the 17th seed, I believe, which would have put it in with Chaos 2 for a rematch, which would have been a crying shame.
Yeah.
Would have been a real shame to waste Chaos.
It would have been incredible hype going into that heat final, but coming back to it like years later, be like, wish we could have seen it. Its own
But thank heavens, Blade and Trident did us all a favour by withdrawing, and Wheelie Big Cheese got promoted into 15th seed, which basically made it the favourite to win the episode instead. And indeed, it did its best to lose because it pit dived in round 1, had absolutely no interest in fighting Prizefighter or Wheelosaurus. It really wanted to fight Sir Kill-A-Lot and show off its enormous flipper. And the second that its huge jaw things open, you're just like, oh, please use that on an opponent. Please use that on an opponent. What was that, Theo?
It's that moment when the jaws open, you think this robot is going to do something.
Yeah.
But in the fight, they get the slightest bit of leverage on the Prizefighter. They fire it, and they almost send Prizefighter entirely on its side.
I think its first fight isn't. I don't think it's its best showing.
No, I don't think anybody would say that.
Wheelie Big Cheese. I think that was when he was discovering how awkward it would be to drive for the first time.
Well, it also has the kind of deflating moment. It gets Kill-A-Lot fully on top of it and just does nothing because it's got 800 kilograms of house robot, just on top of it. Like, you're not shifting that.
Yeah, it's
immediately at that. I truly believe immediately at that point, Roger Plant already started getting ideas for a second version of Wheelie Big Cheese.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly got more exposed axles in this model. It certainly looks more vulnerable. But yeah, it's funny. Like, Prizefighter and Wheelosaurus are doing their thing, and Wheelie Big Cheese is like, yeah, no, you mortals are beneath me. Like, look at me. Do you think that I belong in your company? Poor Prizefighter. But yeah, it's just, flailing around and does its best. It would have been really fun if it had been able to flip Kill-A-Lot, but, There
had to be at least one house robot that never got flipped, I guess.
And if there was any it was going to be, I'm glad it was Kill-A-Lot, to be completely honest. Like, Apollo tried, and sort of took up the mantle of Roger Plant, but no one ever did it, and it's kind of fitting that someone never got flipped. But yeah, there's this one moment in the fight where Prize Fighter flicks its little dessert spoon flipper, and then Wheelie Big Cheese opens its jaws in response. It's very funny.
It's cute. It's cute. Prize Fighter's flipper.
Yeah, but yeah, Prize Fighter kind of just shits the bed early on. It's going in circles. It ends up on Shunt's axe, and then Wheelie Big Cheese nosedives into the pit, just under pressure from the house robots, and it's kind of like I said before. Wheelie Big Cheese is probably not that easy to drive. It's only got 2 wheels, not 4. It's got no casters or anything like to front wheel drive it. It really is just very long and ponderous, and you swivel it the wrong way, yeah, you are going to nosedive into the pit. But fortunately, for us all, the producers do intervene and say that Prize Fighter goes out instead, and that puts Wheelie Big Cheese through to fight Killatron.
Oh boy,
they got no respect this series at all.
No, except for the fact that everyone kept saying they came third.
Yeah, that's the one thing they give it. Yeah, because Killatron, it was just in its melee, it was just about piercing Maverick, and now it's fighting Titanium Wheelie Big Cheese. Yeah. I mean, it had no chance. Yeah, the house robots make very clear who is the favorite, because once Wheelie Big Cheese gets its first flip in, Shunt literally comes out of the CPZ, pushes them over to Wheelie Big Cheese like, no, do it again.
And I love that as soon as Wheelie Big Cheese flips Killatron the first time, Richard Broad is just like, yeah, well, that's it. We tried. We had fun. Like, Killatron just looks like it's designed. It's big and, it's got this huge body that just looks good being flipped.
Great for the gauntlet, but I think as soon as it's a real shame it didn't do Series 3, because I think that would have been its last series where it could do something reasonably well. Certainly Series 4, everyone had wedges, forks, low sides,
better armor.
Its heyday was over, sadly.
Yeah. I forgot Matilda actually writes Killatron during the fight, just to give us another Wheelie Big Cheese flip. Like, that's the most amazing part, is that they want us to get more Wheelie Big Cheese flips, because they just look good. Not as good as they would in Series 5, obviously, but the way Nick describes it is Wheelie Big Cheese just lifts you up to a maximum height and then you fall off, but it still looks pretty good when you fall off, like at that height.
Yeah, because I mean, it's Series 5 when we see the true, true launches. Here, it is very much just physics. Like, you are on the end of this. You're on the end of this 1 point something meters thing. You are lifted up 1 point something meters. You fall down. But it does still look really nice.
Yeah, and I love that Wheelie Big Cheese is like driving around in like wheelie pose with its jaws open. It's just really, it looks like a big mouth, like it's just grinning. I just find it very funny. But the heat final. Let's talk about the heat final, shall we?
Shall.
I don't really. This is such a conflicting feeling, because I would have loved Suicidal Tendencies to make at least one semi-final, and this would have been a great breath of air in the Series 4, because I reckon it would have probably beaten Tornado in a fight, which would have been great for the Suicidal Tendencies team, and we wouldn't have lost Wheelie Big Cheese Series 5 campaign or Series 5 finals appearance. But yeah, it's very hard to deny that Suicidal Tendencies is firmly in control here, and not even in an unentertaining way. It's not like I'm trying to give some other examples. It's not like Prize Fighter in round 1, where if Wheelie Big Cheese went out, we got a lesser battle because of it. Like, Suicidal Tendencies is like, it's using its little pickaxe and it's bullying it around. It's actually doing very, very well, and it's an enjoyable performance at the start.
The thing is, Wheelie Big Cheese just can't launch a meaningful attack because the forks preclude Wheelie Big Cheese getting under them at all. Like,
yeah.
the most meaningful attack they can launch is reversing onto suicidal tendencies to try and damage them with the little tips on the end of their wheels.
You mean Wheelie Big Cheese's vertical spinners?
Yeah, I mean, some people call this a controversy with the whole thing. I really don't see where they're coming from because suicidal tendencies completely loses one of its tracks like halfway through the fight.
Yeah.
It's pretty ridiculous they weren't counted out, honestly. But
yeah, they weren't really about the counting out for being on one side, but it's kind of ironic that they were ready to count it out in round one. But it's kind of the same thing, isn't it? Where Prize Fighter was not moving on one side, and now Suicidal Tendencies wasn't moving on one side.
I will say this fight does remind me somewhat of, and we'll get onto this, of Wheelie Big Cheese versus Chaos 2, where one weapon's got a really, really small, narrow weapon at the front and absolutely dominates Wheelie Big Cheese. Because it's more maneuverable, and it's really seen here from Suicidal Tendencies of all robots.
Yeah, and I'm just rewatching it again. Suicidal Tendencies really does go for the bait you into the pit moment, which I never really like. Like, it's a very low way to win. And I feel bad for Roger Plum because he's getting a couple of really good pushes, which is pretty impressive when you're literally pushing a big 1 meter wedge into a tracked robot. And it comes really close 3 times, and the last time it just misses and goes into the pit. But really, the House Robots should have just pushed Suicidal Tendencies in because it was right there. So Kilowat was right there, and it wasn't fully mobile. So he should have just driven forward and pushed it into the pit.
I think at that point, it's still entertaining watching Wheelie Big Cheese ducking in and out of the pit. That they probably wanted it to continue as long as possible.
Yeah. The Suicidal Tendencies team, you can tell that they are not happy. As soon as they're holding hands with Craig Charles, they're like, well, this is not good for us.
And it's so sad seeing them cheer when they think they've won.
I know, but it's always the case, People always, cheer prematurely. So, Tornado. What's our thoughts on this one?
This one's kind of interesting because you've got this kind of huge, unwieldy, like, dedicated weapon against just aggressive, insistent brute force. And as is usually the case in these kind of things, aggressive, insistent brute force wins out because, yeah, it's more. It's Tornado is a lot more maneuverable. It's faster, and it can just barrel into Wheelie Big Cheese and just bully it around.
I gotta say, I love this fight. I love the like the matching color of Wheelie Big Cheese and Tornado, like the red. It looks so good. And just Wheelie Big Cheese gets the best flips of Series 4 by far in this fight. That first flip on Tornado very nearly chucks them out of the arena. And if it was just a slightly different angle, it could very well have been Wheelie Big Cheese's first Uta instead of Chaos 2's first Uta. Oh, sorry, no, third Uta.
Although, does anyone love? It's in there in the fight card as it's coming in under weapons. Wheelie Big Cheese has apparently a flipper and spiky wheels.
Well, they're full body. They're vertical spinners, Theo.
Course, many teeth.
Yeah. But yeah, like the fact that Tornado is so vulnerable in Series 4, like it breaks down against Gemini, and it's got, reliability issues against Chaos 2. That actually makes this fight better to me because it means that Wheelie Big Cheese was actually very, very much in it with a chance. Like the flips and then obviously the damage over the fire. This fight could very easily have gone the other way. And if it wasn't for that broken wheel, I think Wheelie Big Cheese would have definitely won this on the judges' decision.
Yeah, I think it is kind of surprising that because until Tornado kind of idles over the flames too long for a bot that's got polycarbonate armor on its top and bottom, yeah, they take some pretty big flips and they're not really affected by them. It's kind of surprising given, yeah, it had a fragile drivetrain.
Yeah, but no, it's a cracker of a fight. It's such a shame that it's so heavily edited down, as is most of the contents of Series 4 Semi-Final 1. But yeah,
can I just say, thank God we got this in this series and not Extreme or something.
Oh God, I know.
Can you imagine that fight?
In Extreme, this fight would have been awful. It would have been so
It literally would have been
sad.
like the opening minute or it would have been like whenever Tornado's just barreling them around, it would have been that for like all the fight.
Yeah.
Not a single flip would be
And
scored.
it would have been Wedge-nado too. Like I like Series 4 Tornado as one of my favourite robots of that series. You know, they're not offensive, but they're really tactical and they're really aggressive and they're really clever. But once you get to Extreme,
more of that there.
What was that there?
I really wish we saw more of that tornado spear.
Yeah. It's
I mean, Series 4, yeah, it's Series 4 Tornado brings like a power to the arena, but it's that we haven't seen before. But it's not. Well, it's not in every other bloody episode.
And it's not it's not busted. That's the good thing about Series 4 Tornado. It's not broken. It gets easily outperformed by a really strong flipper. And pre-weight increase, when it can't stick a big like solid metal wedge on the front to negate all the fun robots, it's really good. That sort of thing. So yeah, I would have almost loved to see Tornado in one of the side tournaments of Series 4, but I would have loved to see Wheelie Big Cheese in one of the side tournaments of Series 4, to be honest. But not to be, and this was Wheelie Big Cheese's expiry in Series 4.
I suppose I think Tornado, even if the wheels on Wheelie Big Cheese were working, I still think Tornado would have taken this. Because even with it working, Tornado was so aggressive in that fight and so much more maneuverable. I think it would. I reckon that would swing it on a judge's decision. I don't know.
I reckon Tornado has as many rams as Wheelie Big Cheese has flips. Wheelie Big Cheese has 3 flips, and Tornado sort of gets a couple of like extended drives, but I reckon they're probably about the same weight. Whereas the wheel, I think, was the determining factor. Take away the broken wheel, and it could really go either way.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, actually.
Yeah. All right, so surprisingly, which I didn't really know until I got into the wiki stuff, is the Series 5 Wheelie Big Cheese is a complete rebuild. There are 2 distinct Wheelie Big Cheeses, which is impressive, I think. But yeah, completely separate model. It loses the spiky titanium nature. They're a bit more subtle, the wheels this time. But it's a lot more secure, and the flipper is a lot more powerful.
Yeah, they put that weight increase to good use.
Yeah, I'm glad they managed to soup up the flipper a bit, because in Series 4 got a few good flips in, but it did look like more like a very powerful lifter.
Yeah. So there were 256 spikes, the tungsten golf studs on each of the wheels, and each one was individually sharpened, according to the Ultimate Real Robots magazine. So that just shows you the level of love and care that Roger Plant had for his Wheelie Big Cheese, and we'll revisit that because that's important to know for later on. So its debut fight, I believe, is against Dietor, who is inexplicably in the All Stars tournament. But it's a
Come on.
fun-looking flip for sure. I think it's odd that Dietor is here when there are so many other All Stars who aren't.
Who would you have? Would you ever have a Splinter in there or something?
I don't know. I feel like Spawn Again 101.
Yeah, Splinter did get a bit shafted.
Yeah.
Yeah, this there's not really much to say about this one. It's a bot that is famously unable to self-right, no matter what they try and do to fix that against Wheelie Big Cheese.
Yeah. And
The most notable thing here is Dietor's eye shattering.
yeah. And Wheelie Big Cheese, it sort of looks more like its Series 4 sort of ability. It doesn't get those sky-high flips that it gets on some robots later in Series 5, but it does the job on Dietor, and that's kind of pretty much it. Dietor doesn't really have a response, like you say. Feels weird. This feels like a fight that happened, but you didn't expect it. And so does the next one. Like, the fact that Wheelie Big Cheese and Chaos 2 fought doesn't feel like something that happened, but it certainly does. And I don't know. It's not as good as I would kind of hope. It's certainly not as good as Chaos 2 versus Big Cheese is.
No, and it was. I guess it was. Just, I wish it was. I wish it was hyped up a bit more. Obviously due to the last series 3, and it's just a shame it wasn't more balanced. I would have really thought Wheelie Big Cheese, very powerful flipper, very good driver, bloody huge. You know, I would have really liked it to be more balanced, but that's just how it was.
It's basically, it really is honestly the same story as the Big Cheese. It's because Wheelie Big Cheese is even more awkwardly shaped and massive than the Big Cheese was, and yeah, George Francis, he can just drive rings around that thing and flip it at will. And I mean, Chaos 2 with its own increased power can chuck the heavier Wheelie Big Cheese just as well as it did the Big Cheese. There was more.
If not
honestly,
better, I think.
Honestly, Wheelie Big Cheese has more of a chance of winning this than the Big Cheese ever did, because there is a threat later on in the fight of them getting a flipping on Chaos 2, which, as we know at this time, would pretty quickly spend its gas. So if they'd done that, and Chaos 2 had been unable to self-right, they could well have won this, but...
And they would have had a rematch with Tornado, which we've just finished saying we never wanted, so...
Yeah, so thank God it didn't,
right? Yeah. But yeah, it's the flips on Wheelie Big Cheese are great. They're kind of like just chucking it around. The way it sort of spins around in midair is really good fun. But yeah, it's not the Wheelie Big Cheese that we would come to love in Series 5. It certainly seems a lot more ponderous and not as much fun.
I think like wine almost. Wheelie Big Cheese, it kind of gets better the longer you leave it.
Or like cheese.
Hey.
It's like I was thinking of trying to think of something that fits that one. Yeah. Anyway, it surprisingly goes to a judge's decision. I kind of didn't expect it to. I thought for some reason that Wheelie Big Cheese would lose by knockout here. It tends to a bit in extreme. But yeah, I suppose that's good. It lasts to the judges, but was never going to go any other way.
Yeah, and then they enter into a weirdly stacked mayhem. Like, I don't know why you've got the number 3 seed and the number 10th seed in the same mayhem when, like, I don't know, who did Panic Attack fight in theirs? It was
Shere Khan and Dietor.
Yeah.
Or Splinter, Agrobot, and Killatron, is
yeah,
certainly
just
some that were more stacked than others. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, props to the Ming 3 build for actually saying, yeah, okay, let's do this fight.
Yeah. I wonder whether there's any other of Mayhems that had 2 top 10 seeds in it, because obviously Pussycat was in with Smidsy, but Wild
Yeah,
Thing.
Smithy and something.
Yeah, no, like that's the only other one that's got 2 seeds in it that I can think of. Bearmoth, Thermidor 2, and Stinger are all in together.
Oh, that's okay. That's
That's 3
arguably
seeds.
just as stacked on average.
Yeah. And then you've got Atomic and Mousetrap are in together. Panic Attack's in by itself. Tornado's in by itself. Gemini's in by itself. Bulldog Breed doesn't have a seed. And Disco Inferno doesn't have a seed either. So there you go. It's certainly interesting. Probably the second most stacked after the Thermidor Bearmoth Stinger one. But yeah, it's certainly stacked, and it's a hell of a fight for Hypnodisc fans, but very sad if you like Ming or Wheelie Big Cheese, particularly Wheelie Big Cheese. I think it's.
I mean, Ming was hopelessly outmatched either way, but Wheelie Big Cheese is not a bot that is going to beat Hypnodisc.
No.
Hypnodisc is far too agile and far too smart to drive up that wedge, and those wheels ain't going to hold up to Hypnodisc. They're not.
Even though we saw it happening, it's really sad seeing Ming 3 just sat there with no wheels.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's very funny. Like, Hypnodisc versus Ming 3, I would rate this fight really highly. But I just really don't like this fight anymore, because it just makes me really, really sad. Like, I don't know. Like to offer up a robot as delightfully entertaining and, visually appealing as Wheelie Big Cheese as a sacrifice to Hypnodisc, when you've got Kilotron and Velociripper and all these other sacrificial bots there. It just makes me sad, to see Wheelie Big Cheese sacrificed like this.
I mean, it feels weird seeing Hypnodisc being able to tear through the flipper of Wheelie Big Cheese. For some reason, it feels like that should be too solid for that.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I can't imagine Wheelie Big Cheese would be very good in an Annihilator environment, but then Hypnodisc ended up being dreadful in the Annihilator it was in, so it couldn't have been much worse.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. But it's it's a sad one for Roger Plant, who they don't cut to him once during the fight, because I suspect that he was probably not very happy about this, because the House Robots really just give Wheelie Big Cheese an absolute smacking. Like, it's in the pit and Shunt is still attacking it. So
yeah, that felt a bit much.
A bit cheap, yeah. Like, Wheelie Big Cheese is basically, it's dead, and then it goes to try and throw Ming for the benefit of the audience, and then it's just like the House Robots are still piling on it, and it's just like, guys, the House Robot rivalry is fun only if Wheelie Big Cheese can fight back.
Yeah, it was really sad, this fight, and that last moment of Ming 3's been thrown, it falls right in front of Wheelie Big Cheese, and it just tries to have a go.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem fair, and it's not fun to watch. I like a good rivalry with the House Robots, but only when it's a fight and not just picking on a dead Wheelie Big Cheese.
Yeah.
The main thing I like about this fight is just the end shot of Hypnodisc, sitting back, its disc slowly spinning, and you just see sparks flying from Wheelie Big Cheese or something.
Yeah. Anyway, speaking of House Robots, I think what we might have here is Wheelie Big Cheese's worst ever contribution to a fight, which is the Flipper Frenzy. Now, on paper, a Flipper Frenzy is quite fun. Like Bigger Brother, Thermidor, Wheelie Big Cheese, and Chaos 2 all in the arena flipping each other around. That'd be hilarious. And what happens is they all try and gang up on Bash and Matilda. And Wheelie Big Cheese is like, I'll handle Matilda, you three all go for Bash. And it fails abysmally, and not even in a particularly enjoyable way. Just sort of...
No, because Matilda is immediately like, no.
Yeah.
And just completely twats it with its huge vertical spinner and kills it dead.
Yeah. It's such a shame. Like, Wheelie Big Cheese never got to flip a house robot. That doesn't feel right. Like bloody Steg 2 and Raging Nightmare flipped house robots. And Wheelie Big Cheese never got to because they put Kill-A-Lot and Matilda against it every single chance they could. And they're like the two most dangerous house robots to Wheelie Big Cheese. Like, obviously, Wheelie Big Cheese was designed specifically, like its measurements and everything was designed to attack and flip a Kill-A-Lot. And that's fine, but Matilda is not, it's not fun. Like, this is not Series 3 Matilda who everyone just picks on. This is Series 5 Matilda, who has gone through puberty and is now bigger than the boys who used to pull her pigtails and is now ready to knock them out with a roundhouse kick.
I mean, I've no sympathy for Wheelie Big Cheese here because I mean, you send Chaos 2 or like Bigger Brother, you send something nimble. If you don't send off big, long, awkward Wheelie Big Cheese to fight the deadliest house robot, so it's all on Roger Plant. He's got a bit too confident, a bit too cocky. Should have gone for the easy target.
Yeah. Anyway, so Thermidor 2 defeats Wheelie Big Cheese in combat.
However, these fights in Extreme, I always remember because Wheelie Big Cheese was one of the first robots that I remember when I've seen the reruns on Dave, if anyone did. And because they always showed Extreme 1. So it's a bit weird coming back to Extreme 1 and realising Wheelie Big Cheese really didn't do all that well. Because my memory of it seemed to be it dominated everything.
Yeah. Well, it feels like it should. Like, it feels one of those robots that feels like it should dominate everything.
Yeah.
But
it's just a shame that through one reason or another, in Extreme, it really doesn't.
Yeah. But you know where it does dominate? Series 5 Heat H, which has to be a contender for the greatest heat of all time. And a large part of that is seeing Wheelie Big Cheese at its absolute peak potential.
Certainly the best of Series 5.
Oh, I would say it's the best of the classic series.
I mean, yeah, it's... Yeah, you immediately can tell Wheelie Big Cheese it's juiced up. It's on summer good.
Yeah.
Their initial fight is against Wolverine, who, by all accounts, a pretty good live scene bot. Scored a few wins against Tornado.
I will say
it gets like partial purchase under it near the wall and sends it cartwheeling out.
Though, for some reason, I really do like Wolverine. I think something about the colour scheme, its appearance, its front scoop, something about it, it just looks right, even with the name.
Yeah. And if you looked at Wheelie Big Cheese and you looked at Wolverine and you looked at, everything else in Wheelie Big Cheese's career and said, yeah, Wheelie Big Cheese gets 2 Ooters. Here's all the robots in Series 5 Heat H. Wheelie Big Cheese throws 2 of them out of the arena. Wolverine would probably be about the 6th robot I picked on that list. I would probably have picked Supernova last, and then I would probably have picked Wolverine second last. Everyone else I would have been like, yep, fairly good chance. But yeah, I wouldn't have picked it to be Wolverine. But yep, out they go.
I really wish it got another fight or another heat because I would have liked to see it do reasonably well.
Yeah,
I do think
one of the better
Wolverine
ones to lose in round 1.
I do think Wolverine, if it had like an Andrew Marchand behind the controls, it could have won this fight, but
thank God it
thankfully, thankfully it didn't. And Wheelie Big Cheese, it just sends it cartwheeling out, and then it moves on into probably it moves on to the most famous single attack in robot combat history.
Yeah, it goes to fight this robot called Axor, who has a flipper, whatever. And anyway, so Roger Plant goes, you know what? This is
Langport Civil War.
Yeah, kind of what I'm going for. I kind of think that I might chuck a robot out from the middle of the arena. What do you reckon about that, lads? And everyone's like, oh, you won't be able to do it. And he's like, right, well, here you go. How about this? And in a clip that everybody has watched on any resolution about 100 times since 2004, I mean, what else is there to say? We've all seen the clip 100 times.
Arena out of the Robot Wars galaxy.
I love the way that Axor, it sort of slides onto the flipper and hops just that little bit just from the act of having its ground clearance breached. It's like it's getting ready, like a high jump. You know how you do that little skip before you do the big jump.
Yeah.
And it's sort of it's a gorgeously shot thing. Like the replays are all right there for the taking, and they even get the sky camera to be able to see it move in that arc. It is just, to this day, I rewatch it, and I think I cannot believe that happened in the classic series.
Yeah, because I mean, we saw some pretty big flips in the classic series from Chaos to Gravity,
but nothing on that scale.
No, this is like you can put this up against the flips achieved by like Bronco or Hydra in
Or
modern
Apollo,
battles.
it
Ranks among them. It's up there with them.
Yeah, Apollo gets this sort of height against a quarter of the swarm. And this is a robot that's 100 kilos.
About this flip as well. In the slow-mo, it shows that Wheelie Big Cheese flips over itself. Or whips itself over. I always thought if I hadn't seen that, Wheelie Big Cheese flipped it and sort of flipped it behind it.
Yeah. It looks like it, doesn't it? It doesn't look like it sort of flips it forward. It actually looks like it flips it like the Kilotron angle, where it goes back behind its head.
Actually, is possible for Wheelie Big Cheese to do.
Yeah. But the thing is, so Roger Plant has said that this is obviously his favourite fight of his career. He also claimed that the producers were not particularly happy with him for finishing the fight so early. I really don't see how anybody could have that opinion. It is an absolutely phenomenal moment that is.
Yeah, I hope they fired whoever said that.
Yeah.
Right. Who can watch that and go, oh, that won't be entertaining enough?
Yeah. Let's get them back in. Let's have another Crush Station versus Robo Chicken Evo. Let's have another one of those. It's just it's amazing. What more could you want from that? But it doesn't even end there. Like the Heat final, where it's up against Crush Station, who is, to credit of Heat H, Crush Station's had a bloody good campaign itself by dumping Bearmoth in the pit. Like, this was meant to be Wheelie Big Cheese versus Bearmoth, which is a fun scenario in itself. I kind of feel like Bearmoth would win in a not particularly fun way, but I love this matchup of Wheelie Big Cheese versus Crush Station. And
I think
it's a good fight. It's a really good fight.
I think fact you can say that just there was almost no potential lineup for this Heat final that wouldn't be fun in some way.
Yeah.
Just because they were there. Go on.
Oh, sorry. I actually think Bearmoth versus Wheelie Big Cheese, that would I think it'd be a really good fight actually, because I don't see either one of them getting the upper hand. Maybe if Wheelie Big Cheese gets a really good flip in, but if not, that would be a very long and interesting fight.
Yeah. This is, I think, without a doubt, the most we ever see of Wheelie Big Cheese's flipper in action. Like, it gets probably 6 or 7 attacks on Crush Station. And bless Crush Station, they're carrying a cheese grater, which is just hilarious. But they just keep chucking it. There's a couple of really good flips, and then the crab conks out, and Roger Plant keeps the attack up and manages to do a really neat little pitting, which, is amazing considering this is only 1 year on from the whole suicidal tendencies disaster.
There's two there's two interesting attacks with a flipper, because there's one where they flip them and just kind of scrape the aerial off, and then there's the final flip, which seems to finally just knock Crustacean dead, which isn't something you kind of think you'd see more of that with flippers, especially earlier on. But there's very few cases I can think of where a bot just hits the floor and is just knocked out by the impact.
Yeah, like gravity versus lightning is kind of the best example I usually come to with that sort of, you fall up and you hit the ground and you die. Poor Crustacean, they were really never going to be able to do much against Wheelie Big Cheese, but it looks great.
They were never going to win this, but they gave it a really good show. They gave it a good fight.
And Crustacean's one of those robots that's just fun to watch it get flipped.
Yeah, it's just got a nice shape for like awkwardly landing.
I think it can blatantly be flipped. Like I think I'd like to say that was intentional, but it so clearly can be flipped. But it's never phased by it. It rarely. I just love the design of it, where it's meant. I think it's meant to be flipped, and they're just saying, "Right, carry on."
So we move on from the Heat finals to genuinely, I think, one of the most heartbreaking fights in the classic series.
If not the most heartbreaking. Like, this has been a debate amongst our group in the last couple of days about whether this is a good fight or not. And I'd be interested, readers and listeners, comment your thoughts on whether this is a good fight because of what happened before, or whether it's a disappointing fight because of what happened in the end. But
I will wear my hat on my sleeve. Dominator 2 after Series 4, take it or leave it. And the manner in which it wins over Wheelie Big Cheese here.
Yeah, and especially knowing what we got as a result of the Dominator 2 win, which was the Hypnodisc versus Dominator 2 fight. Dominator 2's Series 5 campaign is definitely not my favourite campaign.
In this fight, I do love the amazing, almost vertical flip Wheelie Big Cheese gets in at the start.
Yeah.
Both its flips here, like, they're both very close to the arena wall, and it's like, if only the angle had just been slightly different.
And I love the way Wheelie Big Cheese like slices its flipper underneath Dominator 2's ground clearance. Like, it can't get in by driving forward. It sort of spins and just as Dominator 2 comes in for the attack and slides underneath. And the second flip where it literally flips Dominator 2 onto its face, and then Dominator 2's going for the self-right, and it fails like twice. And then it scrapes the axe along the floor. Oh, it's beautiful. It is gorgeous. And then...
But then they just conk out.
I know.
I can't believe that the single axe blow Dominator 2 manages to land is what does it. So it does just seem like they conk out.
Yeah.
Worst possible time.
I know.
I really don't want to believe that. I don't really know what I want to believe for that. Like, if it's Roger Plant's engineering that went wrong, or Dominator 2 got a good hit in.
Yeah. But it's just like it just stops. Just in the middle of Dominator 2 literally does not land an attack until Wheelie Big Cheese is already immobilized. So you have to think to yourself that if Wheelie Big Cheese had kept going, it would have easily won this fight. Like, Dominator 2 just seems to have no answer to it. Like, the axe does absolutely nothing to the titanium armor.
But I'm not sure about the end of this fight. There's something about a robot being counted out, and then your immediate response is attacking it even more, and then shoving it into the house robots.
Yeah, especially when you know that it's got to go through a loser's melee. It's just like, come on, guys.
It's not over. It's not over at that point. Dominator 2 is always one of those robots where I can always count on it doing well, but against all the finalists, I just can't rate it to do very well.
I do really like Dominator 2. It's never been one of my favourites, but I do really like them, and I wonder whether my holding me back from it being one of my favourites is this fight. It's just so disappointing that it wins this way, especially because it won a really boring heat and has a really, really bad finals display as well, and loses in extreme pretty much every fight. So
yeah, extreme to Series 5 Dominator 2. It's just it's like a it's a very hard robot to love, whereas its Series 4 and Series 6 are a lot more admirable.
yeah, that's right.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's kind of it's easy to like, but I just can't find any reason to absolutely love Dominator.
Yeah. But anyway,
Wheelie Big
let's
Cheese.
talk about the losers melee and get the
I'd-
heartbreak over.
I almost wish we didn't have to.
I know.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't think Wheelie Big Cheese was ever in a chance here because Firestorm is a perfect design to completely nullify it.
Yeah, and Panic
It's
Attack as
fast.
well. Like as soon
It's
as you
fast
saw
enough
this
to mile
lineup,
away.
it's like when they lined I don't know,
It's like
one of those
Suicidal Tendencies. The short forks at the front. It just wouldn't have a chance.
As soon as they
But, I mean-
announced that Magnetar was in Series 10 Heat E, and you're like, okay, so Magnetar's going to make a grand final then, basically. Because you look at who it's against, and you're like, yeah, nah, Thor's not going to do this. Come on. Don't be ridiculous.
Yeah, and I mean, Wheelie Big Cheese doesn't even have the honor of getting pit or something. It gets stuck under an angle grinder and just quietly dies on the side.
Like even if it had been able to kill Panic Attack or something, but
yeah, it does land the flip on Panic Attack. And if it'd been able to throw him out and then die, that would have been a nice end, I guess.
Yeah, it says a lot that the Jonathan Pierce recap in the Series 5 Grand Final does not show a whole lot from either this or the Dominator fight because there's just so much disappointing crap to cut out. But yeah, I do love the Jonathan Pierce, his Really Big Cheese's flip. I don't think Really Big Cheese's flip was working. Is it working? And it fires literally that second. Yes, it is working. But it's one flip, kind of Panic Attack barely functions after that one flip, and
Panic Attack's not functioning much throughout, to be honest.
Yeah. These three robots are compared to S3 and Wild Thing and the other losers melee. These three robots are all not working at their best capacity.
It's a good kind of. It kind of defines the difference in quality between the two episodes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Series 5 semi-final, absolute barnstormer, got, in my opinion, the greatest classic Series 5 of all time. And then semi-final 2B, Wheelie Big Cheese versus Dominator 2 is literally the only good fight.
I know, and it's such a heartbreaking fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is an awful episode. Sorry, Alex the Hunted. It's an awful episode. It's disappointing. It is full of terrible fights.
And surprised and shocked that you really didn't want to happen.
Yeah. Could you think of more upsets that you didn't want than in this episode?
Rick losing in the first round of Series 5.
But even the fights that honestly make for a better episode, like Pussycat losing, it loses in the most boring way.
I know.
Loses in a boring stomp.
And a Pussycat would have then gone on to fight Razor,
I
we love when Pussycat fights Razor. Whereas Firestorm, we already know that it couldn't beat Razor. So it's just it's not a good episode. But this is the end of Wheelie Big Cheese. It's the retirement. We don't see it again after this fight.
I think Roger Plant. I think by now he was just a bit peeved with Robot Wars in general.
Yeah. So
he kept wrecking his nice machine.
Yeah. I recently, a couple of years ago, I made contact with Roger Plant and interviewed him a little bit about his time, and he revealed some stuff that I'll relay. Readers of the wiki may have discovered it, but basically he had a real issue with production. He really didn't like that the show's producers tended to prioritize uh, destroying the competitor robots instead of the sport. Now, that can be debatable. You may think that he's being sensitive and he's in the wrong kind of tournament. But at the time, I started to look at it some more and I thought, he's got a really good point. He had a complaint that, the show didn't subsidize the Roboteers. And, maybe they shouldn't have to, but if you're going to have the house robots, not the competitor robots, the house robots inflicting damage, then you should subsidize the competitors, especially the extent to which Roger Plant was targeted by the house robots. Those tungsten wheels are probably not that easy or cheap to fix.
Suppose if you think about it, competitors damaging competitors, okay, the robot's self-funded and you're fighting other self-funded robots.
Yeah,
which is
that's
fair enough.
combat. Yeah,
And production robots breaking competitors. I think there's some argument to be had there.
Yeah, I mean, Wheelie Big Cheese probably got off more lighter than some because it was such a hardy bob. But certainly, if you see some of the lesser robots, they would get significant structural damage from the likes of Killalot or Matilda. So yeah, I can easily see why Roger Plant would come to that conclusion.
And I have a theory that, based on his opinion, I think, because we know that Extreme 1 and Series 5 were filmed at the same time, I would not at all be surprised if because we know that the Annihilators were filmed last. So if the Hypnodisc Mayhem and the Flipper Frenzy were the last two episodes that Wheelie Big Cheese fought in, I would completely understand why he would say, you know what, I've had enough.
Well, I think the Mayhem would have been filmed before Series 5.
We know some of them were, but I don't know if all of them were.
I think some of them were before, but I think the Mayhems especially, they were kind of dotted around. It would, in fact, it'd be interesting if any older Roboteers watch this, or if we can reach out to them to ask if they have any memory of the schedule of Extreme 1, Series 5, and how all that panned out.
Yeah, that would actually be wonderful.
I'm inclined to think the Hypnodisc one was just because Hypnodisc is actually competent in that fight, but...
No, actually, because Hypnodisc, after the grand final of Series 5, it was in quite a sad,
which is why the Annihilator is,
yeah, it wouldn't be in such amazing shape for the Mayhem. I don't think.
Yeah.
So yeah, Roger Plant did ultimately retire from robot combat. I know he entered Series 5 Wheelie Big Cheese into a few live events, which the one video I've seen of that is filmed from what looks to be about 300 meters away, which makes sense. I really hope he turned the flipper power down in those live event arenas. But he ultimately ended up selling on his machines, and to the best of my knowledge, they all currently exist still. They're strictly for display these days. Most notably, the Big Cheese is currently adorning the wall of Team Ironclads.
Which, honestly, I think that's the thing. I don't think it should have gone back to live events. It's nice. It's nice for it to be displayed in all its glory.
It's a very some people hang up art on the wall. You hang up the shell of an 80-kilogram combat robot. All good.
Doesn't Peter Kinsey have Roadblock hanging up on the side of his garage?
I mean, as you would. Why wouldn't you? Who's got the Mule? Does the Mule still exist?
Yeah, the Mule.
Mule is with the Series 5 version of Wheelie Big Cheese.
Okay, right. And then obviously we know that Team Glitterbomb has the Series 4 Wheelie Big Cheese.
It's vice versa.
Oh, vice versa, sorry. Glitterbomb's got the 5 Wheelie Big Cheese, and Team Hydra has the Series 4 Wheelie Big Cheese.
We can at least be sure that even if they're not fighting anymore, which fine, but they all still exist. They're all still in good nick, and that's nice.
Yeah,
It's
nice. It's
preserved.
nice, especially because we know that there's so many that don't exist. Like we know that Spawn of Scudder does not exist. We know that, there's dozens of them that are out there that we know do not exist anymore. So it's just something nice to know that the Big Cheese and Wheelie Big Cheeses both still exist. Like I find that a little bit heartening. Had Wheelie Big Cheese returned for Series 6, obviously, it would have been seeded. I wonder how. I really don't see it winning another heat, though. Series 6 really did just kick things up a real notch, as evidenced by Panic Attack falling by the wayside. Wild Thing very nearly did. Dominator 2 sort of was going toe-to-toe with Hydra. Chaos 2 and Stinger fell by the wayside.
I feel like I would like to see it fight Anarchy. I would like to see if it can flip Anarchy.
That would have been a
all the way
terrible
over.
fight. There's no way it would have breached Anarchy's ground clearance. That whole fight would have just been them flailing around, scraping their wedge against the sides.
Been a very good fight.
No,
Apart from that, I am inclined to agree that.
Yeah. I'm looking at the
they
Heat
probably would've
finalists, and
not
I would
progressed.
struggle. Even Panic Attack Gold, I feel like they wouldn't get underneath. And I really just don't think there would have been a whole lot Wheelie Big Cheese could do post Series 5. So I think that maybe Raging Reality or Exterminator. Maybe.
Yeah.
And obviously Shredder. We're not going to do much.
It's like side note, but does anyone else actually love Panic Attack Gold? Like, I think it's one
We're
of
not
my
having
favorite
this
versions.
discussion. We're like,
An hour and 40
we have
minutes
an
in.
hour and a half
Hey,
in.
do you guys
accidentally
like Panic
started on
Attack
the topic
Gold?
of Panic Attack Gold.
It looks beautiful, like Biohazard.
Oh God, Panic Attack Gold. Like
Not going to dignified out response.
Yeah.
So, what are our favourite What are our favourite Team Big Cheese fights?
I was gonna say, is it even worth discussing? Because there's an obvious 1-2. Like, what's everyone's third favorite Team Big Cheese fight? Because
I want to say that I do want to say the Mayhem because it's fantastic Hypno Disc action, but it's not fantastic Wheelie Big Cheese action. So for that,
I want to say Tornado, but I really love Shrapnel, Anarachophobia, Wolverine, Crustacean. Yeah. There's like 4.
I would say Axor or Crustacean.
Axor is the unspoken.
Axor and Chaos 2 are like the 1-2. So like
for number 2, then for number 3, I think Crustacean, because it was a lovely fight with a lot of good flips. It's entertaining to watch.
Yeah, Crustacean's a really good shout.
Boxes for me.
Yeah, mine's Tornado, but I think Crustacean would probably be my 4th.
Yeah, I'd have to say Tornado probably.
Yeah, or Anarachophobia. No, Anarachophobia is my 4th. God, there's so much good stuff in there.
And our least favourite?
Least favourite? Well, Dominator 2's got to be up there for sheer heartbreak. But I think the Losers Melee is pretty awful.
Because Dominator 2, it's... You can admire a tragedy, but the Losers Melee is a farce.
I know. The Losers Melee, nothing good happens in the Losers Melee. There's one attack of interest, and that is the flip on Panic Attack. And that's pretty much it. And I think probably second place is probably the Mule versus Demon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I forgot the Series 2 ones, actually.
Yeah, I know.
They might be... Thunderbird versus the Mule might actually be worse than the Losers Melee. So
I know
think
it's
I'll go
so
with
bad,
that.
but I think Plunderbird versus the Mule is bad, like by Series 5 standards, and I feel like the Losers Melee is bad by Series 2 standards. So I think my answer is still the Losers Melee.
We can agree then.
Okay, so brings us to the end of
Yeah.
unexpectedly long.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're about 45 minutes over time, but that's all right. We like big cheese.
Yeah,
we like really
as
big
long as we
cheese.
shave off a minute or two in edit, we're still
Yeah.
below Chaos 2
I was gonna say,
Part 2,
guys,
which
this
is
has
our
been a
gold standard.
this has been a Wheelie Big podcast, a Wheelie Long podcast.
Hey.
Thank you. I thought of that myself. It just came to me. Thought it was smart. Oh, well, thank you everybody for joining us, and please, for the love of God, do not think that you are. Please do not indulge 5G conspiracy theories. Wear a mask so we can all get out of this bloody COVID-19 lockdown. Take care of yourselves and tune in for more content on this channel.
See yous.